Hi, everybody, and welcome along to the Endless Celts Podcast. I hope you're all well who's watching. I'm going to watch along later on as well. How are you, Anthony?
I'm very good, mate. Very good. We were just saying off air that the usual kind of setups have been swapped about a bit this week, but it works out. So it worked out well for everybody. But we're just like Brendan, just utilising the squad as best we can.
Rotation, mate. It's all about rotation and keeping the squad fresh. You know what I mean? Anthony's up in the Friday team now.
It's a very sober effort for me for a Friday night, but I'll certainly get as good as I get.
Well, I mean, mate, I'm on the water like last week. I remember I used to sit here every Friday and get absolutely rat-arsed usually, and that hasn't happened in a while. But sure, I do want to make people
around the corner, I'm sure.
Oh yes, there is. There 100% is. The Super Six is back. This is the leaderboard as it stands. Kieran is still out in front on 122 points. Mark Robertson second. Anthony, you're there in third, 10 with Kevin Gallagher, Jimmy McElduff fifth, Stephen Coulthard sixth, William Dobbin seventh, Alistair Jack eighth, and Ryan Taylor ninth. And I think Franny rounds off the top 10. You just can't quite see it there because of the banner. So everyone get involved this weekend. Get your scores in nice and early. And Stephen Coulthard, I'm sure your prize is on the way. Anthony, have you picked up his prize yet, buddy?
No, it's my plan that I'll need to liaise with. It's just been a mental week at work, but I'll hopefully liaise with Ross, and I can either. And I obviously knew he was out last week, so I thought I'll no bug him on a Sunday. I might see if he's around. I might be able to try and pop up on Sunday and get it. If not, I definitely will pick it up at some point next week. So we'll see you very soon, Stephen.
It feels like we've been telling that.
Everybody else.
It feels like we've been telling Stephen that for a long time, but it's coming. Don't worry, it's coming. Even the Jed and Corver who are in the comments already and everyone watching along. And Anthony, before we get into the game, obviously Champions League football back at Parkhead. We've seen the Lazio game, we've seen the Feyenoord game. I mean, that famous word competitive, and Celtic were competitive within the match and stuff like that. We've talked about that before. But what was your feeling getting into this game against Atletico Madrid? Because I think they're only 2 points or 3 points off the top of La Liga. I think they've recently beat Real Madrid, and they've been free scoring. And not like an Atletico team, but Diego Simeone seems to change a bit of that in terms of going forward. Griezmann, Morata, like a top two that would torture anybody. But before we get into the game itself, how did you feel approaching it?
Do you know, it's one of the weird ones, Stephen, because like you say, you look at the players that they've got, and regardless of what you think of Diego Simeone, and I don't think much of him, it has to be said, but you have to give credit where it's due. There's no doubt he's a top class football manager. There's no two ways about it, and it very much could have been. We have had a few bloody noses in Europe recently, and the recent times, especially in the Champions League, as we said, and certainly on paper, there was no reason to suggest that it could well have ended up being the same on Wednesday night. Just like you say, if the players got going and we weren't at it could have been a sore one. And I'm not saying it with hindsight at all. And I always try and stay positive anyway. And I did take us to maybe nick it 2-1 in the Super Six, but obviously Ross called it right on Monday night. We had 2-2 draw.
He put the wrong score in the Super Six.
Oh, I know, unbelievable. But it was it was a strange feeling, because I've went into games before and you think, God, this could be a sore one, or there's times when you maybe go in and you maybe think, this mob are here for the taking, and it never quite materialises. I was never really on either side on Wednesday night. I didn't go in, I didn't fear the worst. Then again, I wasn't thinking, oh, listen, it could be. I think maybe the way the whole situation is with the group, where if we have wanted to have any hope of having any kind of European football after Christmas, we had to pick something up. Obviously, a win would be great, but a point, just with regards to how the other results are going, still just keeps you in about, and you've got something on the board. So the fact of, I kind of just felt that because we had to, we would take some. I know it's a strange sensation, but I didn't really ever feel leading up to the game that it would be a sore one that night. And lo and behold, like you say, I know it's our favourite word on this on the show about being competitive and stuff, but the boys, they absolutely did. They rose to the challenge, and maybe on another night it would have been all 3 points. Atletico at times obviously showed their class, especially second half. But I think every Celtic player has to take enormous credit for how they fared against what is we always say that they are a top draw European outfit. There's no two ways about it. I get that obviously compared to their city rivals, I always think, Real Madrid are kind of like the aristocrats and Atletico are like the run to the litter. You could argue, there's a good argument to say that Atletico are almost like the Madrid version of Rangers, but there's no two ways about it. They are, only with, skill and talent on show. But there's no denying that they're a great team in their own right. They've won La Liga more than once, I think, in the last decade. They've obviously competed in Champions League finals as well, and Simeone's been there right the way through it. So there's no, this was a top draw outfit we were taking on. Generally one of the best, and we came away with a point on the board and plenty of plaudits as well. So after a few nights where we feel like we're never going to get over the line, and I know we're still not quite over it yet, but definitely plenty plus points to take for the game.
100%. We'll get into obviously our chances in Europe for after Christmas shortly in the podcast when we discuss the game and the result. And San Fran players and crowd did the club proud. Jed thought we would have got beat by 3 clear goals. San Fran was worried I wasn't going to come on if it got smashed, but it didn't turn out that way. Do you know what I mean? So I'm here and we're going to talk about it. And to be honest, I'm like Anthony and San Fran there. I'm proud of the club and I'm proud of the way they performed and taking that point as well. Albeit it might not mean much come to the end of the campaign, but it was a performance I thought we were really, again, struck a luck maybe, Anthony, 1 or 2 times, you know what I mean, to go our favour. But at the same time, it's still a great point against a world-class team. And that's the type of, I put it on Twitter, that's the type of Celtic I love seeing in Europe, just that non-stop attitude and never say die and you keep going. The crowd was on point. And I do want to touch upon the crowd, obviously. You were at the game, Anthony. And for me, watching on the TV of Magranda, it looked like, now, again, I don't want to go back into the whole intimidating atmosphere and down that road, but it felt different watching it on the TV. It felt like it was hostile. It felt like there was a lot of, I would say, heated. Obviously, there's needle between the clubs from the 74 game, and we played them recently, I think it was 2012, 2013 season, I believe, in the Europa League at that time. But what was it like for you? Because watching on the TV screens, obviously seeing all the big flags and you never walk alone, and it wasn't like the party atmosphere it was against Lazio. It was just, as Roger says this time around, down to business, and the crowd from the very first minute were on top.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think obviously there's a whole range of factors, Stephen. In terms of, the crowd were absolutely fantastic. Of course they were. I mean, I must admit, I was actually in the ground pretty sharp on Wednesday night because I went through with my dad straight for work, and we got packed up quite quickly. And I was humming and hawing, do I go for a pint or not? But I ended up, I'd had an early lunch at my work, so I was absolutely starving. So actually made the rare trip to McDonald's at the Forge beforehand. So we were in the ground, I would say maybe just before 7:30. So we've seen, the players were out warming up and stuff, and seen the ground fill up as well. I definitely do think that, like you said, perhaps that kind of needle sort of came from the history between the two clubs. And I think perhaps if it'd been a club where there wasn't that kind of animosity between, and by the way, I have to say, I think the way Atletico Madrid, their representatives in the club themselves have needlessly stoked fires in the run-up to the game with a ridiculous decision to wear a commemorative shirt on the back here. I think it was one of their directors or one of their ex-players made disgusting comments about Jimmy Johnston as well. So I don't think anybody was really in the mood for it. I have to say, I mean, Atletico took a healthy support. I sit in the main stand, so I can't really quite see kind of what the interaction was like between the fans and stuff, but generally the fans outside the ground weren't being, the Lazio fans in a negative way made their presence known in Glasgow a couple of weeks ago, whereas I think generally the Atletico fans, it seems to be more an issue club to club rather than, the actual supporters of Atletico. With what I've seen, it seemed relatively, respectable and amicable between the fans, so that's good to see. But and I think obviously there was a bit of apprehension with how would all the pre-match stuff go as well. It's been well lauded. The club's been having a bit of a to and fro online between the board itself and obviously the Green Brigade. But that itself, I mean, I know we'll probably touch on it. I have to say, I think sometimes these things can get made out to be bigger than what they are. On the actual night, mean, as I say, I'm only giving my own opinion, and as I say, I was in the ground early, so I don't know how much was going on outside as the kickoff drew closer. But there was people, some sides saying that the people were going to be getting harassed to wave a flag if even if they didn't want to, or there'd be that kind of peer pressure thing. I didn't see any of that, and likewise, people that did want to wave it, I didn't. Certainly around my side, and try to keep your eyes are constantly darting around the stadium before the kickoff, and I didn't see any kind of commotion or anything like that. I think people that wanted to wave it were given the choice to do so, and people that didn't were, for what I've seen, there wasn't any kind of tension about that either. So, and obviously the fact that we then, like you said, the Champions League anthem, and that gets the hairs in the back of the neck standing up and the pulses racing as it always does, but then coincided with an explosive start, and then which carried on right the way through the first half. A lot of the off the park stuff, I feel like it kind of fizzled away quite quickly, and I think it all just became about the football. And and as I say, I think it was Sanfran that said it in the chat earlier, that players and the club did themselves proud, and couldn't agree more.
As you said, I think a lot was publicised out of the events between the Green Brigade and the board, but before the match, statements to and fro between each organisation and stuff like that. But I think in the Green Brigade statement, they said they weren't going to force anyone to do it. And like you said, Anthony, you were at the stadium, you didn't see anything of that nature, which I suppose is a good thing. Freedom of speech and freedom of will to do whatever you want, and that's only bodes well going forward. Do you know what I mean? But sticking to the game,
even as I say, that's only my account, but not what it's normally like as well. If there's everyone's got a camera and a video these days, don't they, on their phones, and it's like genuinely, if there is big altercations, or someone's always looking for attention to record it and then put it up online, and literally haven't seen anything. As I say, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm on Twitter or Instagram all the time or anything like that, but generally that kind of stuff would get seen and shared quite quickly if it was happening, and I haven't seen anything. So yeah, it seems to be a good night all round.
100%. And Jed, he's about to become a granda for the first time, so congratulations, Jed. Congratulations to your daughter and everyone involved, your family as well. So, I mean, that's brilliant news, buddy. 100%. But I mean, sticking to the game, Corvo says it here, Scales Saldigan at the back. We're going to come on to the defence, but I want to start with, you said we made an explosive start. Anthony, that was quickly compounded with a fantastic goal. Brilliant bit of play, I think, all round. I think Alistair Johnson chips it up the Maeda, heads it in. I think they're Matt O'Reilly's feet, plays Kyogo in on the angle. Kyogo plays it back to O'Reilly, and a sublime pass to cut through the Lazio defence. One touch, just cutting along the grass. Kyogo takes it in the stride and just dinks it over. A world-class goalkeeper in Oblak. And before we talk about the individuals involved in that particular goal, I mean, come on, for a Champions League night, that goal's fit enough to win any game.
100%, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that is one of the best goals I've ever seen Celtic score, and it is especially in a European front as well. And like you say, against the calibre of opposition that we were up against, Stephen, it was absolute world class is the only way to describe it. The wee chest control for Kyogo initially, and then I think O'Reilly gives him it back. Like you say, Kyogo draws him out, but it's the pass for O'Reilly and the off the ball movement for Kyogo that takes it in. And as I say, I know one of our biggest frustrations last year, not just with Kyogo but with other players, but probably with Kyogo especially this time of year, was the amount of chances we were creating in the Champions League, and they weren't being taken. And I don't know what it was. The minute I seen that he had, obviously the ball that O'Reilly had played reached him, you knew it was in. There just seemed to be that anticipation. You were like, no goalkeeper stopping this. Whatever he decides to do, whether he chips it, whether he just unleashes it, puts the laces through it, or just the lovely little dink that he did, you just knew that Celtic are going to score here. And it was absolute bedlam in the stands. It really was. So, quite similar, obviously, we had an early goal against Lazio last year, last game as well. But obviously this came even quicker, and it just kind of helped keep that atmosphere going. And I generally, as I say, up there with one of the best strikes I've seen. And I said that in our group chat as well. If PSG or because they were in action that night, or if any of the other, so-called bigger teams had done something like that, it would be on the highlights reel for the rest of the tournament probably, and it would maybe even be nominated for one of the goals of the tournament. Probably because it's us, they'll try their best to overlook it, but we were all there, we seen it. It was poetry in motion.
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. The pass for me makes it. I know Kyogo's run off the ball, and the fact he continued to run, but the way O'Reilly took that in his path and just boom, fizzed it into him, just perfectly weighted pass. And you see players down the years, Xavi, Iniesta, Scholes, Pirlo, can all play them defense splitting balls. I'm not saying O'Reilly is on that level, nowhere near that level, but I'm on about that pass he executed for Kyogo was fantastic. And sticking with Matt O'Reilly, just to talk about him a wee second, I think Rodgers has took his game to a different level. And obviously there was late transfer interest, I think, from Leeds. They had a £10 million £10 million bid rejected in the very last day of the window. Blessings, mate. God's done us a favour there, keeping this guy. Do you know what I mean? Imagine he was playing in the Championship this year and not showcasing his skills on the biggest stage in the all in the Champions League. I think for me, look, I don't wish any player away. For me, he's going to break the club record fee for Tierney. I think he's breaking it easy. I think Fabrizio Morano put up a tweet this morning, I believe, saying that he's happy and stuff, but there is clubs kind of circling around him and they're talking about fees and things like that. That's always going to happen, especially when he's breaking into the Denmark team, when he's scoring consistently in the league. He's making assists in the Champions League. And his all-round game, his fitness looks better. He looks leaner. He looks more sharper. He can cover the ground quicker. And he just looks like he's really enjoying his football under Rodgers.
He absolutely does, yeah. I mean, obviously, I think the Daily Record and the other, usual cronies were quick to try and turn a quite innocent comment from O'Reilly in the summer into a big drama, into some kind of war of words between him and Ange. And as they often do, they twist facts and try and create their own agendas. And I think, to be fair to both Ange and Matt O'Reilly, they knew exactly what the media were up to, and it was quickly played down. But listen, all players are probably in a lot of ways similar, just to a workforce in any kind of job. That what if they're led under a manager that move about. Some people work or they feel that they blossom more under different approaches to management and leadership, and Ange's got his own style. It's certainly to the fan when you're watching it, it's awe-inspiring when he gives those kind of almost gladiatorial type speeches and pre-match. And Brendan, but I think for what I've heard, certainly in training, he was a lot more aloof. Would just stand at the side and keep his eye out for everything. Brendan has always been his approach. He seems to be a lot more open, but more democratic's maybe the best word. Allow the players to express their feelings a bit more. As I say, there's more than one way to manage a football team, and but it just seems to be that Matt blossoms more under Brendan's approach, and Celtic are the main beneficiaries of that. So we can only be happy. And you're bang on, Stephen. I mean, for my sins, we had Clyde One on in the car going on the way through, and for reasons best known to them, there's two guests on a Champions League night that Celtic were featuring in were Marvin Bartley and Kenny Miller. So for reasons unknown, and I very near spat on my juice out when I heard them say that O'Reilly will definitely be gathering interest, and you're looking at a good £12 to £15 million fee for him. I can only assume he was meaning a loan fee, Stephen, because he's certainly going to be going for a hell of a lot more than that. Like you say, we got him at an absolute cut price when other clubs were sniffing around, and that full credit to him, by the way, because there were Premier League clubs sniffing about him when we managed to prize him from, I think it was MK Dons, wasn't it? He's came up here, he's made a footballing decision. He's been absolutely magnificent up here, but as you say, I think this is the best form that he's been in so far, and he's now getting to show those talents, not just in the Champions League, but he's also broken in, still to feature, I think, but he's now in and around the Danish national team as well, so his career's progressing, so it's only natural, I suppose, that that clubs are going to be sniffing around, but if they want him, they're going to have to pay a hell of a load of money for him, because that's the great thing about Celtic at the moment. A lot of the guys are, tied down on. Well, I don't know how long Matt's got right enough, but there's certainly, I would imagine he's got the length of his contract and definitely what he's on and his value on the pitch would imagine that we would command a pretty good chunk of change for him.
I've seen Alistair Johnson comment on his Instagram post saying £50 million player. So obviously they're joking about with him all the time in regards to that. Look, that's fair enough. I think for me, O'Reilly's he's so elegant, and people compared him to Tom Roddick at the start, and you can see the comparisons, but he's a totally different player than our Tomo, the Wizard of Oz. Like, he produced magic moments, but I think O'Reilly, for me, is just a fantastic player, and I think we should all enjoy him while we still have him. Do you know what I mean? As Alistair Jack said, they're 1.5 million from MK Dons. MK Dons. Could you imagine being their chairman right now going, yeah, that was probably a mistake. That was probably a mistake.
Only thing I can imagine is maybe they've got maybe like what we do, they've maybe asked for some sort of sell-on clause, but I don't know. But regardless, obviously Celtic will be the main beneficiaries of any transfer deal. But as I say, it's the way that the cycle goes, and obviously if Matt's going for that type of money, the serious kind of money that we're suggesting he could do, it'll be on the back of him being successful at Celtic. And obviously, all we want is for Celtic to be successful. So that's just the way the world works. And, I wish we were perhaps higher up the food chain in certain ways that we were able to, how we would be able to, negotiate for players and stuff. But whilst we're still having the success that we have, then I suppose we can't complain too much.
I think as well, like you're mentioning a cycle of his career. I think for any young player coming up or who's facing struggles, I think Matt O'Reilly's a perfect example that you never give up. I mean, he was at Fulham with Maurice Jens, funny enough, who played for us as centre back for a while on loan. He didn't get a sniff. He took the chance to leave Fulham, and he trained in a park by himself during COVID. He got his move to MK Dons on the back of him being ambitious, being motivated, disciplined to do that training himself. And now you look at him and you're like, wow, he can go anywhere with his career. And look, I'm not over exaggerating. You know me, Anthony. I don't like to egg things up, or do you know what I mean? Unless I believe in myself that it's true. I think watching O'Reilly develop under Rodgers, whether it be his management style, like you said, whether it be just he's found a new vein of form in this position he's been moved up into, is testament to him. He's made his career. He's put the hard work in, and he had his ups and downs. I think if you're in the Celtic Academy or if in any academy throughout the world, you look at his career and you'd be like, I can do that. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, like he seems to be a leader within the dressing room. So that's a testament to him. Players seem to listen to him. He seems to have respect. He was doing the post match in the last league game against Hearts with Cal McGregor. I think Cal McGregor tried to compliment him. He was like palming it off. Just don't be saying stuff like that to me. He's a humble guy. So having people around like that in the club, I think only goes well for Celtic. And as you said, we're the beneficiaries of his great form. And there's comments in here about Palma and things like that from Corver. We're going to come on to Palma and his thunderbolt of a goal. But before that, we'll have to talk about the man from Japan, the happy man, Kyogo Furuhashi. I think he's always smiling, he's always laughing, he's leading the celebrations in every league game that we see. And I'm so happy for him that he's translating that form into European football now and scoring goals in the top stage of them all. And the way he took that was just like a seasoned striker, experienced. He didn't panic, he was in the zone. Maybe when he first joined us, he was snatching at that. Just first time, bang, trying to hit it. But he took it in the stride and dinked it over Oblak. And you can't that can't be underestimated, in my opinion.
Yeah, because it can't. It's as we were discussing, it's a tremendous finish the way he did it. And like you say, lesser players would have just tried to put their laces through it and just try and take the net off. But he probably realised that that kind of approach, maybe what he tried to do a wee bit more of last season in the European front, it didn't come off great for him. I think probably what he's trying to do this season is try and go on his own instincts, like what he normally does domestically, because more often than not, when he gets a chance, the ball ends up in the net on the domestic front. But I think perhaps it was just, the fact it was the first year in the Champions League, perhaps there is that mental block of, not too many chances. I'm not going to get too many efforts on goal, so I need to really, almost hurry and try and get it out of the way when those chances come along. But he's you're further down the line now, and you just see it was just composure right from the word go, just even in the build up to it as well, Stephen. And I just can't praise him enough. And it was the same for the goal against Lazio as well. The way that he peeled off his man as well. We all knew that he was a top class player, and probably, and he would know it himself, he didn't quite take that form and that ability into the biggest stage last year, but certainly making up for lost time this year.
He's unbelievable. I love the guy. I mean, the only thing that concerns me if he gets injured, and it looked like at the end of the game he was limping, and that's a bit concerning. Obviously, Rio Tate will come on to him. He went off with what looks like a bad injury. I think you put in the chat that Rogers confirmed it looks like a bad one. He out for a few weeks, and he was only really coming on the game. But before we talk about him, let's talk about the penalty kick that, let me see here, on the 25th minute, Griezmann missed. But if we go back to the incident, Greg Taylor, McGranda's convinced it isn't a penalty kick. Me and him kind of debated about this. I think it is a penalty kick. I think Taylor took the fella down, regardless if it was soft or not. His foot was in front of his, and he's went into him. He's made the contact in the box, and we all know the tricks that Atletico are good at. The masters of the dark arts in football under Diego Simeone, and they'll find any loophole, any way to exploit something, and they did, and they got the penalty kick. And going from you in the stadium and you've seen it back, but what was your overall feeling? So even towards the incident, and do you think Greg Taylor's partly to blame for losing his man? Did he fall asleep a wee bit?
I think it was more. I mean, I can't remember the player's name that did peel off him. I think it was more great movement rather than necessarily a glaring error. For me, at the time, Stephen, I felt the pace of the game was moving that quick that I thought soft, but possibly, but it was the fact that there did seem to be a lot of players saying that it wasn't. I think it was one of the ones where they say, and this is where VAR's one of my biggest frustrations. It's the new phrase, by the letter of the law. Like you say, it's 0.1 of a millimetre, but his foot is in front, and but I think it's one of those ones where the player, for me, is quite clearly looking for it, and it frustrates me how, no matter how much we advance it in football, referees just they don't seem to be able to referee these teams properly. No. And I just think he was looking for it. He made the most of it. It probably is a foul. But what surprised me as well, though, is for what I could see, there was nothing came up on the big screen to say VAR checking. It was almost like the referee decided and that was it. I have to say, I don't necessarily think, and I think what probably added to the frustration as well was the amount of unpunished fouls, especially on Maeda in the first half. And every time a decision went against Atletico Madrid, you would have 5 or 6 of their players. I mean, this is supposedly the stuff that they're meant to be clamping down on and using the technology to, bring back officialdom and things like that. But the referee was completely lost control.
You made a point there about. You made a point. I want to come on that point there. You made. I mean, John came in there and said it was a penalty. Alistair Jack said it's a penalty. But you mentioned there are players and their protests right now. I've heard a few people online maybe say Celtic are a bit soft and they don't really challenge referee in certain decisions. They kind of just back off and let the game go on. And you're saying again on the other side of things, it was every time there was a foul to them, it was 5-6 of the opposition players. Yeah, 100%. Do you think Celtic should maybe do more of that? Is that being streetways, or is that just being an annoyance? Is that not letting the referee the game?
I think it's a frustration for me in the fact that I don't understand how all of these years that went past that referees just don't. They're taking, and I think the very first time that he booked somebody, and then 2 or 3 went over after that, and you were going, well, book them as well then, because none of them were the captain. I think that there was one point in the second half he shouted over to their captain to come and get them to go away from him, despite the fact he'd made the sort of go away gesture to them 3-4 times. And I'm going, that is why you've got a yellow card in your pocket. And if they keep doing it after that, change it to a red, because nobody. The whole point of it, and Atletico wouldn't have had a leg to stand on, because in theory, because everyone's apparently saying that we've got to have officials have got to be back in control and total respect to the referee. I think I wish Celtic didn't do it. I'm glad we don't do it, I have to say. But by the same token, it frustrates me that the teams that do it don't get punished for it. And it seems to be that, put it this way, I don't think if Kyogo went down the way that the Atletico player did, and everyone can just say, oh, you're maybe just saying that through tinted spectacles or whatever. I don't think Celtic would have got a penalty for that incident if it'd been up the other end of the park, because I don't know what it is about Europe. Well, I think referees are abysmal across the board.
Well, we've talked about this before. It's the difference of rules in each association that clouds form, doesn't it? I mean, you look at that penalty kick, and I'll throw another example too. I don't know if you've seen it, but the Aberdeen game last night.
I've not seen it. I've not seen it, but I've heard. I've heard that is an absolute.
Yeah, so basically, if they explain it to you, their left back Jack McKenzie takes the ball in a mazy run, gets in the box, literally gets tripped up. Probably what Greg Taylor done to the player in question for Atletico. And then fast forward 10 minutes later, the opposition player on the edge of the box, their centre half Rubicic stands on the toe of this player, right? Albeit he did stand on the toe on the line of the penalty box, and they got a penalty kick, but Aberdeen didn't get it. So it's the difference of rules, and we talked about this before, Anthony, at length. You just don't know where you stand with it, and you look at the penalty kick. If we take it back to the incident in the Celtic game, I think you're right in a point where it's the exaggeration, isn't it? It's the over. They're trying to get over the referee that was a penalty.
Absolutely. What I would say is, I don't think there's any difference, and maybe this might be a strange one because obviously Celtic did actually get a penalty for this, and I know it's a different type of coming together with the ball. I put the penalty that Atletico got on Wednesday in the same bracket as the one we got at Tynecastle. I think it's one of these modern decisions that, for me, I don't think it was a penalty at Tynecastle, and I thought, I know they're trying to say now, oh, maybe Kyogo put his knee across and all that. Even if he did, that's the kind of thing I hate about the modern game, that they were micro-analysing to that extent to try and see if we can give a foul. I felt very much the same with the Atletico decision on Wednesday, so I accept it to the point of, by this modern letter of the law material, it probably was. But if I was the all-seeing, all-eye, all-powerful, Sauron of football, I wouldn't have given a penalty for either. But in terms of VAR itself, Stephen, that's always my biggest frustration. It's supposed to only interfere with what we tell when it's clear and obvious. And the fact that these referees can't make their mind up on what that is. I mean, we were talking about it in the group chat. There was a programme on Sky Sports after the game against Hearts on Sunday there, and it was to incredibly celebrate a year of VAR in Scottish football. And it was, I think it was the head of referee and two or three of his, minions, ridiculously for an hour straight try to justify their existence with all these mealy-mouthed, pre-scripted, words and statements. Never has so little been said with so many words. It was actually an embarrassing production, to be perfectly honest with you. And not one contentious decision, incredibly, that featured Celtic was mentioned. In terms of, you think of the absolute shocking ones, the O'Reilly handball, the your good pal, the Bernaby handball incident, the very first game against Hearts at Tynecastle when James Forrest played the ball in, and I can't remember which Hearts defender it was, but he played a sort of Scottie Pippen type interception, and it wasn't even looked at. So there's VAR has been very much for me an overwhelmingly negative introduction to football. I'm very much with Ange Postecoglou on it. I don't think the technology fits the sport of football. I think it negatively affects the fans. I think the fact that referees and the powers that be can't make up they can't decide what the rules are, and then they change the rules every 5 minutes. The whole great thing about football, and it's at its simplest, is there's not actually that many rules, and it should be quite uncomplicated, quite simple to follow. But this now is just it's San Fran, nail on the head, man. It's killing the sport, and it's turning referees who were already incompetent into indecisive monkeys, quite frankly. It's ruining the way that the players play the game. It's poorly affecting the amount of stoppage time that's getting added on. it's becoming quite the norm to have 100 minutes of football, which is ridiculous. And obviously, the amount of waiting, 4 or 5 minutes you're waiting for a simple decision to be made. I can't stand it. And the only thing that I would potentially say to keep it is the fact that because you're getting to see the replays that often, all they're doing is highlighting how incompetent they are with it. But it's a terrible thing. It really is. It's slowly but surely killing the sport.
You feeling better now, Anthony?
Absolutely.
How did get Anthony triggered, eh? Asked about Griezmann penalty and we're talking about decisions that happened last year. But I mean, to take it back to the penalty kick, the Griezmann, obviously he missed it and he scored the follow-up. Obviously, I mean, we all call it Celtic goals we concede in Europe. That's up there with one of them. But within yourself, did you get that kind of feeling that we usually get around about that point where we're going to be like, oh no, they're going to take control of the game?
As we mentioned earlier, obviously with the early Celtic goal, up until that point it was very, very similar. The game kind of went the same way that the Lazio game went. Obviously, early goal, and then I felt a frustration with allowing them back into the game. I've not actually seen the replay yet, Stephen. I wasn't sure if Joe Hart had touched it onto the post or if it just
tipped it a bit.
My dad was actually saying that. He goes, Joe's no kind of renowned for saving penalties, and that's him saved 2 in the Champions League this season, and he's got nothing really to show for it. Having said that, I thought he had a couple of really good saves, especially in the second half. Kind of the Joe Hart we all want to have kind of more consistently. But I thought he had a good game on Wednesday night, sorry, and certainly, but I know we'll touch on their second goal as well. I don't really think he can be blamed for that one, but at that point you just thought, God, this is eerily similar to a couple of weeks ago. But then obviously, whilst Atletico fans, as we've seen for the video, whilst they were still celebrating making it 1-1, Louis Palma had other ideas.
I mean, for coming on to that straight away, great segue, Anthony. Very well done. But I mean, seamless. I think Louis Palma, for me, he was a player who had openly admitted didn't excite me, but I'm starting to get what type of player he is. I think he's really composed. He's a playmaker playing off the wing, if you get me. Doesn't have blister and pace, obviously, we've seen that, but he creates opportunities. We've seen him hit a few corner kicks on Wednesday night, which was great to see him and Matt O'Reilly kind of changing that up. I think Matt's been told, look, Palma can do it as well, buddy. Let's give him a chance. But I mean, he wears them black boots. Remember, Kieran Tierney, when he first broke into the team, black boots and all these aesthetics you notice with players, and he was in the right time, the right space at the right time. I think we had a free kick or a corner kick around about that time, but we messed it up. They broke up the pitch. We won the ball back. Ended up over Maeda on the left-hand side. He whips in a ball. Again, aimless. Maeda just hits in crosses and he doesn't know where they're going to go. Landed at Palma's feet, Anthony, and he still had a lot to do. Absolutely. He was in a position, probably I would say 30% of a scoring opportunity there if you're talking about stats and XG and things like that. Thunderbolt. Passed Oblak again, smacked off the left-hand side post and nestled in the back of the net. And the eruption of Celtic Park, I would have loved to have felt that feeling. The only time I ever felt Celtic Park would have been a kind of a carbon copy of that. Well, Wednesday night would have been, remember the RB Leipzig game, 2016? Yeah. I think it was when we went 1-8, broke up the pitch and we scored right away, and it just erupted. I would have loved to have been there on Wednesday just to feel that passion, that energy. And Palma, mate, what are you thinking about Palma? And I mean, he's producing on the top stage.
Yeah, very much so. Me and my dad were joking at the game, if you could combine the technical ability and cross, absolutely wonder a right foot is that Palma has with Maeda's pace. I see you'd have a Ballon d'Or winner, right there.
Oh.
Such is life. We have to split the talents. But no, I think. And I know what you mean, Stephen. Like you've used the comparison to El Yunusi before, and I think it's very fair because El Yunusi wasn't blessed with blister and pace either. But I suppose in terms of Palma, since he's come in, obviously he thought he'd scored the one. He came on, scored against Motherwell, He didn't have a great game over in Feyenoord, granted, but I suppose he just literally, I think that was, well, not his, it was his first full start. He just came in the weekend before.
Yeah.
But after that, he's come off the bench, scored at Motherwell, thought he'd scored the winner against Lazio a couple of weeks later. He's obviously got a couple more goals, more assists as well. He's just really he's making, that spot in the first team his own. Obviously tired a bit in the second half, but his work rate, especially first half and then early in the second half, was absolutely phenomenal. But that goal, like you say, what was the atmosphere like? It's again, no hyperbole to say it was electric, absolutely electrifying when that went in. I think because obviously with the fact that, as I say, you felt the game was kind of going in a similar way to what it did against Lazio. The fact that we responded as quick as we did, and to get to go back to 2-1 up, it was absolutely phenomenal. And like you say, totally different goal to the first goal, but in terms of the technique to take it at the angle what he did, he had to get power behind it just with the way that the ball fell to him, and to get it past the Atletico keeper from that angle, absolutely sensational. And it's similar to Awata's goal on Sunday. I always think they look better when they go off a post or the crossbar and in, but it was an absolute peach. 2 goal of the season contenders in the space of the first 40 minutes. It was absolutely unbelievable. And by that point, the stadium was absolutely shaking. It was phenomenal.
Unbelievable. Corvo comes in. If Palmer's right foot was a weapon and called, your kill streak would be hitting the roof. He has a wand of a right foot. But obviously, before we round up the half here, and I mean, one of the probably negative points, you could probably match it with a positive and Bernardo coming on, but Rio Hatate went off injured. As I said, you put in the chat earlier, Rodgers confirmed it's going to be a bad hamstring injury. Could be a few weeks. He's going to be missing. Quite unfortunate because he signed a new deal. He was coming on the game. He scored a couple of goals. He was getting involved. He was doing that different role that Rodgers wanted him to do. He comes off. And also touching upon Bernardo, I've seen a stat. He performed 44 pressers. So more than any midfielder or any player on the pitch, which basically means closing people down and pressing high up the pitch. And he done that. I thought Bernardo looked really good. I thought he maybe not tidy on the ball, but he was a workhorse. He was getting involved, and we might see the obviously best of him in the SPFL when he gets more bedded in and more game time. But just in them 2 situations, Rio Hatate taking off and Bernardo coming on, how did you feel?
Well, to touch on the Rio one first, mate, it was really, and like you say, it's just that kind of shrug of the shoulders, just their luck in Europe, because obviously we're all celebrating the first goal going in, and 9 of the 11 players, apart from Rio and Joe Hart, were the only 2 that weren't over in that corner, celebrating the goal going in, because the minute it went in, Rio went straight over to the dugout. Where I sit, it's just not that far behind the Celtic dugout, and he went straight over to him, and he was holding his hamstring, and he did go back on, but within about 30 seconds, the ball went out of play again, and he tried to stand up, and Brendan Rodgers was telling him really animatedly, sit in your ass, you're off kind of thing, we're not risking you. And obviously, frantically waving Bernardo, because he went out and started warming up quite early on. He got pulled back really quickly, and on he went. I don't know how much the telly showed, and this is what we say about Brendan Rodgers, that kind of more open approach. And he said it last week in regards to Leila Bada and other players. He says he went, I don't pretend to care about my players. I genuinely do care, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I think he's the type of guy you would absolutely love to be managed by. And I think that's why we thought this could be a bad one, because Hatate was really, really emotional when he was coming off. He was in a right bad state, and I don't know if the cameras had panned onto him, but
it showed him hugging him.
Yeah, it was a hug, but it wasn't just that kind of classic. Sometimes when a player gets taken off and it's a quick pat on the back of the head and then right, go and get changed, or go and sit. It was a proper embrace and kind of we've got you, you'll be all right, you'll be okay sort of thing. And I think that just shows the measure of Brendan Rodgers, the man, as let alone the manager. So yeah, hopefully, as he said, I think he said today it's a few weeks. So a few weeks you're into the sort of busy Christmas period then. So hopefully he might get back before Christmas in some way, shape or form, and then he'll have obviously the winter break to try and get back up to fitness, and then we can push on for the second half of the campaign. But in terms of what you're saying about Bernardo, I totally agree. I'm like the rest of the boys, quite excited to see more of him. Although I think, to be fair, I think the same about Odin, Thiago Holm, and Iwata as well. I think that it's probably quite not the nicest thing to say, but the unfortunate absence of Hatate gives all three of the guys now a chance to stake a claim for a more permanent or a more regular place in the side. Brendan's already said that. He says, we've got so many games coming up that it won't be the same team, game by game. He says, I will have to do a bit of rotation. So and as I say, obviously we wish that this wasn't the reason why, because obviously I think we would all probably have Hatate starting every game if we could.
Yeah.
The fact that he's not around now, I think that maybe Brendan was saying that maybe behind the scenes to go, well, you're never going to get more of an opportunity now to try and show us what you can do. So it'll be interesting to see who he decides to go with. You might be right, Jed, as I say, and the thing is as well, you don't want to rush him back too quickly and then have him out for even longer when you get into the business point of the season as well. So we just have to be really careful with him, despite how good a player he is. But no, I thought Bernardo, like you said, he's not the most showiest of players. It is more that kind of workhorse temperament that you said. And I thought he was unlucky with the second goal, because it put in it was a good challenge, and it just the momentum of the Atletico player meant that he was still able to continue with the ball. But yeah, apart from that, he was always playing with the head up, always looking for the ball, which is encouraging. And yeah, certainly can't fault him for effort in terms of that pressing game that obviously Brendan likes to play as well. So again, like the rest of the boys, I'm really excited to see what else he can do in a Celtic jersey.
100%, mate. I think, like you said, it's a great point. We've seen it before. When Jota got injured previously, Abada came in, took the opportunity. Do you know what I mean? When Matt O'Reilly was injured, different players like Hatate took the opportunity. Meda was on the left and stuff like that. So it's about Odin, Thiago Holm taking the opportunity, Bernardo taking the opportunity, Turnbull maybe. I don't know. I think he's done, in my opinion. But it's as you said, it's up.
Order, I would suggest.
Yeah. But it's up to these guys to stake the claim now going forward. Obviously, Rio is going to be a big miss, but it opens up, as you said, the game again. It opens up that midfield to be in with McGregor and O'Reilly, and who knows, maybe come the next Glasgow Derby game, it might be a new look midfield, and Hatate is going to have to fight to get back in. That again, that's good, having competition for places. But before we come on to the second half of the game, I think we spent a good amount of time there talking and through the first half. The Endless Celts have joined the world of TikTok. William has come up with it. He's created the channel, and we've got some tracks. And so far, I'd say the videos have gained, thousands. If you add it all together, thousands of views already, and it's just fantastic. And I want to share just one, maybe two, before the end of the podcast with views. And if anyone wants to join us on the journey on TikTok, again, search up Endless Celts, hit the follow button, and we'll follow you back, and we'll create that wee community that we have here on YouTube. And here we go. Just a wee video to warm it up here.
So good, man.
As Ross, I said, what?
I'm not cutting you off, but like, I know.
No, I didn't mean it like that.
he was like, what? What?
What?
I was such a put down. It was unbelievable. What?
Oh, so good, man. So
good. Like as I said, if you want to join that journey with us, Endless Celts on TikTok, you'll get. Not only laughs, it's disagreements, things we haven't agreed with, fighting, arguing, but funny times as well, and maybe the odd couple of beers involved in these clips. So get involved with it. I'll share another one here before the end of the podcast. But coming on to the second half, coming on to the second half, Anthony. We, I think, imposed our game so much on Atletico Madrid, they had to make changes. They brought on Marcos Llorente for Saul, who was getting overrun in the midfield. They brought on Riquelme to replace their left-back to deal with Meda. So again, we've made a world-class team and a world-class manager in Simeone rethink his game plan, get into the second half here. And look, I think we all have to admit it was a different game. The second half, I think Celtic had to dig in. I think we had to show a different side to their game. That really came to the fore when we changed formation. in that aspect of things to match them up and try and dig in and sit in and take the pressure. But get into it, did you have a good feeling that we would be competitive still? Or, I mean, the first maybe, I would say 5 or 10 minutes we were still in it, but slowly and surely Atletico does come back into it.
Yes, probably obviously the first half against Atletico had a lot more goals than the game against Real Madrid, but it was kind of similar in that sense that in the game against Real Madrid, it started to get away from us in the second half, and it was saying at the early doors. It was the same with the second half against Atletico because their class did start to shine through. It really did, but obviously, just trying first 15, 20 minutes, let's keep going. But unfortunately, obviously, they got the goal. But Jed, you just took the words right out of my mouth. I think there was probably the only time there was a bit of head scratching going on in the stadium because we took off. God, who was it we actually turned off? Can't even remember now. And brought on Matt Phillips, and it was sort of along the line of why we taking off a attacking player and putting on. I think was it maybe when we took off Palmer. It might have been, I can't remember exactly.
I think it was Palmer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we put on a centre half, and there was a few kind of heads being scratched a bit around me, but I have to say I thought it was actually a bit of genius, but a tactical move for Brendan because it kind of nullified because they were starting to really own that midfield in that period, and they were starting to stretch the game, and having that extra defensive player kind of helped kind of crowd that out a little bit more. So it kind of nullified that threat. The only thing I would probably, and that's what I would say, obviously, Simeone, you're buying on Stephen, world-class coach, and that's how he's able to move, those kind of players about. By the same point, and I'll always argue that Brendan's the same. I think Brendan's out the top drawer.
Yep.
There you go, Pam. You're absolutely buying on. That's it. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. He just, I think perhaps he had the ghost of Lazio maybe a little bit in the back of his mind as well. And you think, we've played so well. Let's not throw it away with, maybe try to chase too much. Perhaps if there was maybe one only thing you thought maybe should be a flung O on for even the last couple of minutes. But listen, it's all a splits and maybes, and there's no guarantee that would have, ended up with a more positive outcome than the one we got. So perhaps sometimes it was good just to kind of, rather than try and do a home run, just to get onto a base, and I think by getting a point on the board, we did that on Wednesday night. So as we all know, there's 3 games left. It will be very, very tough, but I think we've showed enough in the first 3 games, and obviously we get at least getting a point to say that we're not out yet just yet. You're absolutely bang on, Jed. I think as much as I think he's lower than a snake's belly, as a certainly in terms of football, in terms of human being, there's no denying the guy is a talented football manager.
100%. And I want to talk about their second goal here, and Taylor for me. Look, I think we went to a back three. Alistair Johnson, Taylor went to wing backs, and when they broke down the right hand side, there was a chance for me where Taylor could have come out and closed the ball, but it looked like to me he hesitated. I don't know if that was because of the formation change that he didn't know what angle to be at, or who had to close down or who had to mark. That's fair enough. But after that situation passed and they scored that goal, I thought his head went for about 10 to 15 minutes. He was just all over the place in terms of positional sense and where to be on the pitch, and even defensively as well. But touching upon the goal first, and Alistair Jack there, I wanted to address what Alistair Jack said in terms of Taylor had a shocker after that. It was a fantastic header by Morata. I think he scored against Scotland a couple of weeks previously, didn't he? In the international game. So he was back on the Scottish soil doing the damage again. But and then Willie pointed out did Alistair Johnson or was it Carter Vickers leave him? And he came round the back and he missed him out. But what was your opinion on the goal then?
The goal, well, I have to say, Stephen, I didn't see it in real time because I was away getting a cup of tea because I was freezing. And I thought, because the ball was kind of up near the Celtic end, I thought to myself, well, worst comes to the worst, if I'm missing anything, it's a Celtic goal. And I knew there was a screen underneath the wee foot bit where I go, and I thought, well, that's not too bad. And then obviously there's a very 5-6 second delay between what you're seeing on the screen and what's happening out on the pitch. And then I was getting served, and I heard a massive roar as if Celtic were pushing forward, and then it kind of went a bit quiet. But then up on the screen it was obviously showing you as kind of up the 18-yard line. So I thought, yeah, it's fine. I'll be back in my seat, and life will go on. And then there was just this kind of rather muted rope, but you could still definitely hear that kind of celebration. And I thought, what the hell's going on here? And by the time I got back out the sort of turnstile section of it, and then out into the park, looked to my right, and all the Atletico supporters were celebrating. I was going, what the fuck's happened here, man? Do you know what I mean? And I did think at one point, I thought, oh my God, is this going to has it been an absolutely horrific defensive mistake? When I got back to my seat, obviously my dad explained how the action had went, and he said there was a couple of boys around them going, really going for Taylor, and my dad kind of whispered to me, he was like, I'm not too sure it was overly necessarily his fault. And I think now that I've seen it back, I get what people are saying in terms of, obviously Bernardo has made the challenge, and I think at that point, Greg Taylor, you see him, he's quite clearly going to help.
He should close it down. He should close it down.
But I think just that the speed that the game's been getting played at, and obviously he's obviously got the other player just in his periphery, and I think the fact that the Atletico player has managed to ride that challenge and he's still in momentum, I think just in that split second he has hesitated and he thought, is there enough cover at that side, or they're trying block off? I think because the natural thing at that point is, certainly for the way I looked at it, is that player would then play it right and then the ball would come in.
Yeah.
But I think just what's happened is it's ended up being a wonderful ball across the butt. And listen, Carter Vickers is a tremendous centre half, no two ways about it. And even he could get nowhere near it. And I think that there are times, I get why perhaps people were a bit frustrated with it. And I do agree, for 5-10 minutes after that, he did kind of lose the way a wee bit. It was a bit frantic, shall we say, is maybe the best way to describe it. But I do think he composed himself, to be fair to him, and obviously contributed magnificently on the course of the night. You look at the ball over the top for Maeda for the second goal, for example. But I just think in that split second, maybe even half a split second, if such a phrase of time exists, I just think he's perhaps been caught in two minds. And the worst, and it's not even been a case of Joe Hart should have came out or Carter. I think the ball across is so good that it would attain anybody out the game, and it's just. I
agree with this. I agree with this.
I had to make a fair. Well, but listen, he maybe could have. It's a fair point, but I just think at that moment I could understand, shall I say, why he got caught in two minds, but. It was frustrating because it wasn't one of those ones where it's a horrendous mistake. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like Joe Hart against Leipzig last year where it was just utter stupidity. It was just sort of almost these things happen in the game sometimes, and it's rather than it just being a great ball across, but then Morata couldn't get on the end of it or anything like that, and then it kind of gets lost in the sands of time. It's just he ends up flinging an absolutely worldy across, and obviously if Morata's on the end of it, more often than not, it's going in the back of the net. Where I've got to give credit to the boys, especially the back four, is after losing that goal, and especially the way that the groups went so far, it could very, very easily have went 3-2, 4-2.
Yeah,
then the night takes on a whole different feel. But Celtic did rally. They maybe didn't get too many clear-cut chances at goals, but we did create chances. And they kind of showed Atletico that no matter how much they keep coming back, Celtic will go toe-to-toe with them, which maybe isn't what we've seen all the time. So, yeah, got to give them credit for that.
I mean, talking about the back four, back five, whatever it was at the end of the game, for me, the best defender on the night for us again was the Irish warrior himself, Liam Scales. I thought he was absolutely tremendous, and not only that, it's his confidence levels are hitting the roof. He's taking the ball out. He's playing killer passes. He's winning headers against Griezmann, winning headers against Morata. Not making it look easy, but we talked about maybe Bernardo with Thiago Home taking that chance in midfield. Liam Scales has took that, and I think him and Carter Vickers now have a solid partnership, and it's going to be hard. it's up to Liam Scales now what he does with this opportunity and this chance. He's grasping it at the minute with both hands, and he's taking it and running forward. But it's going to be hard to get him out of that team. We've got Naraki on the way back. Largabielt was on the bench. Nat Phillips had to make do with coming on for 30 minutes. The guy who came in to be the emergency for the injuries, and then it ended up being Liam Scales being the emergency for the injury. So he was already at the club at that point in time. But what do you think about his emergence? And he's got caps now for the Irish national team. I just think for me, I think his rise has been incredible. From last year, he played against Darvel. He got beat with Aberdeen. He got booed off the pitch. The game after, he was sent off against Hibs. And the only reason I know this, by the way, is because I heard other people talking about it. Just thought it was fantastic hearing that kind of rise. Like Packy Bonner was talking about it on Sports Sound. Beat by Darvel, smashed up by Hibs 6-0, sent off. And now look at him playing the Champions League.
That was me thinking you were just keeping right up to date with your SPFL watch, Stephen, but there you go.
That's only certain players. It's certain players.
But no, listen, again, this must be my favourite phrase of the day. Again, I don't think it's hyperbole to say, for me, he's the story of the season so far, mate.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And that is a story that so far includes, that. Well, you can maybe argue it's the close season right enough, but Brendan coming back perhaps is maybe the absolute story. But on the park, you look at how Matt Riley's came on, you look at Kyogo still banging in the goals. You look at the emergency Louis Palma and everything that he's contributing. Maeda, constant work rate. But I think above all of that is how much, so quickly as well, how much Liam Scales has come on. There's, there's a lot of great, football and sliding doors kind of moment. Had it not been maybe for an injury crisis, would he even be at the club right now? There's definitely an element of that. He could have been playing his trade for Aberdeen last night or elsewhere. As it stands, he is, representing Celtic at the top tier club football and on the international stage, obviously, as well. And the biggest credit you can give him, I think, against the, Griezmann and Morata, there's not many players above them in world football. And he did not look out of place for a minute. I don't think he put a foot wrong the full night. He just, and you'd say that it's really similar to O'Reilly in the terms of looking composed, and he just, it doesn't look like he's worried about making a mistake. He doesn't look like he's panicked or he's rushing anything. He receives that ball, it's either out to Taylor or it's back to Carter Vickers, and then he's making the move to receive it again, and then he's trying to go up. He doesn't sort of gallop right up the way that perhaps Christopher Ayer used to, but he's a different type of player.
He releases it at the right time, Anthony.
I totally agree, and I think Ross used the term balance last week to talk about the different way that the ways the team's set up at the minute, and I think it's the right word to use, because I think having Carter Vickers, the right-sided centre half, and Scales, that there's the back four has a lot of balance in it at the moment. And I honestly can't praise him highly enough. He's the first pick for me at the moment, and it's no disrespect to your Lagerbielkas and your Navrokis and anyone else, but the settled for me centre half pairing at the moment is Cameron Carter Vickers and Liam Scales. And even when the boys are the full squad's back fit, I still maintain that's our best centre half pairing at the moment.
100%. I think, as you said, I think it was Graham. Jed. I think it was saying about Kobayashi, and no, Mark Nugent. Sorry, forgive me, Mark. Saying about
forgetting about him as well. God.
About Kobayashi, he was signed by Postecoglou to be that left-sided centre half. We were all going, he's going to be partnering Vickers next season when Starfelt leaves, and he's nowhere to be seen. He's off the face of the earth in terms of the squad at the minute. And Liam Scales, as you said, I think he is the story of the season. And again, I pointed to it with O'Reilly. Any young and up-and-coming player, just look at these guys. That they made it, and there's no reason why anyone in the academy right now is struggling can't do it as well. But rounding off the game, obviously, and the pundits and stuff in the studio. Now, there was a TNT pundit called, now excuse the name here, James Horncastle. The first part of his second name is what I felt watching Celtic play against Athletic Madrid. Do you know what I mean? But he has come out and said, now, it was portrayed differently. He said Celtic played the best football of the tournament so far, but what he actually said was, we've played some of the best football of the tournament so far. within all the quality teams around that Champions League football. And I think for me, there's plaudits and things like that, but the reason why I'm accepting this for the result there is because it's Atletico Madrid.
Yeah.
I think we played them off the park at times. We were dominating the first half, and second half we showed the other side of the game, the ugly side, how to dig deep and how to see a game through, change the formation to make it comfortable for us and kill their attacking instinct at that time with Griezmann and Morata, and kind of the game dwindled out towards the end. But where do you rank that Champions League performance among, let's say, the last 3 or 4 years? Obviously, Postecoglou's been involved in that. We played some great games against Real Madrid. Shakhtar Donetsk didn't quite see it through. And this draw, to me, feels different. And everyone in the comments hopefully knows what I mean. When I say Celtic should be beating teams, I mean the likes of a Feyenoord, the likes of a Mönchengladbach, the likes of a Shakhtar Donetsk. These are teams like Atletico Madrid, PSG's, Barcelona. They're different levels there. And the fact that we competed, we could have won that game, but we came away with a point. I think that's respectable. And pundits like James in the TNT Sports Studio, who would usually, I think, show us disrespect, have stood up and went, fuck, they actually played really well.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, we had two brilliant home performances. Again, one was ended in a draw, one was a defeat under Brendan. But I would say in both of those games, we performed really well in spells and were really under the cosh in other times. First one, I would say, naturally, Brendan's first one, 3-3 game against Man City. We were absolutely magnificent that night. You could probably argue it maybe, just with, 2 fewer goals, obviously, but it was quite a similar game to what Wednesday night was. We made an explosive start. They came back. We went back in front again. Then I would say that the period of time where Atletico were really dominant on Wednesday night was that kind of just before and just after getting their equalising goal, and then we kind of steadied the ship a bit, and then it was more of an even game as the game progressed. Whereas against City, it was probably toe-to-toe for maybe 75 minutes, and then we maybe were kind of hanging on. I remember Craig Gordon made a magnificent save right at the end. The other game that springs to mind, Champions League-wise, in the last few years, Stephen, was the year later. We'd obviously took a really sore one to PSG. That was probably the first of those really bad nights at Parkhead. I know we'd lost to Mönchengladbach and we'd lost to Anderlecht. We actually lost to Anderlecht later on that year, but the sort of concepts, the mix up behind the games and how the makeup of it was different. We were already more or less guaranteed Europa League football when Anderlecht came to town, so I think they had to win like 4-0 at Parkhead, which was never going to happen. So I always kind of, although we didn't win that night, and we should, as a team that, we should. I think if there'd been something to play for that night, we would have won the game. But just with the fixture pile up around that time, we did kind of ease off. There's no two ways about it. But the other game for that campaign was the 2-1 defeat to Bayern Munich. We had a very good first half against Bayern Munich, but went a goal behind. A typical Celtic in Europe kind of goal to lose, but then we started the game well, and we were the better team in the first half. I remember Stuart Armstrong really should have scored. I can't remember that either that was to put us up or to pull us back level. And then second half we were magnificent. Equalised with about 10 minutes to go through. I think it was Callum McGregor, lovely little ball through for James Forrest. But then, and that's where there was the absence of that in the latter stages on Wednesday night. We shot ourselves in the foot straight away. I think it was maybe 81 minutes, 1-1, 84 minutes, 2-1 Bayern Munich, and it was so frustrating. But, so in terms of performances, I would say it kind of feels probably on those kind of levels. With it being a draw, it's obviously not going to get remembered in folklore the way that perhaps, Juventus will be, or Manchester United or Barcelona or anything like that, despite the fact that you could argue in different ways that the performance was better. In terms of taking a team on and stamping our kind of game to the opponent, it's right up there. It really is. And I know people will say, "Oh, it was only a draw," and like I say, it's almost a bit of a shame, because Atletico will always be the second team in Madrid. So a result against them it lacks that kind of glamour and sort of sexiness, for want of a better word, than they would be getting a draw against Real Madrid. But there's no to it. Atletico are a phenomenal side, and it was a really good performance for Celtic. And I do agree with you in that sense that there was very, very few people left early on Tuesday night, and it was nothing but a fantastic reception at the end to, for us to show our appreciation for the boys' efforts on the park.
Yeah, all in all, it was a fantastic performance all round, both attacking and defensively, and also the crowd putting up that atmosphere again. But Anthony, the tough games keep on rolling. I think Rodgers is raging that Celtic have to play away from home in the Christmas period again, and he was saying that was 7 years in a row. Is it summing up the old tricks? We all know this whole supercomputer that makes the fixtures. It's not a computer; it's a human being. That's not beat around the bush here. But we're at Easter Road, and what seems like a run of away games is never going to end. I think we're going to Dingwall soon as well, I believe. Yeah. The game isn't even on TV, which baffles me. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff tomorrow. It's an absolute shambles that we're going to have to find different alternatives to view the game rather than it being on the Sky Sports list, which it should be. Do you know what I mean? But Easter Road, Nick Montgomery played Rangers last week, and he gave Rangers the freedom of Ibrox. It was a strange performance. Rangers cut open on numerous occasions and comfortably won the game. But Easter Road, Hibs, sometimes we don't know what Hibs is going to turn up. I think we can all say that. I mean, there's two different Hibs that are either really good or they're really shit. There's no in between with them at the minute. How are you feeling getting into the game? Confidence should be high among the group. Can we put the lead up, keep it to 7 points? Obviously, results as well have to be played out in terms of Rangers and that. But I'm confident going into it. How are you feeling?
Well, you're bang on, mate. There is no other team that sums up the phrase Jekyll and Hyde than Hibs. And none but got a lot of good Hibby pals, and we certainly always want them to come out on top in the Edinburgh Derby and things like that. We know that obviously the history with the two clubs that stretches way back to even our entire formation back in after Hibs won the cup in 1887. But yeah, they're a very hot and cold side. Having said that, though, one of my Hibs friends was saying that during the week. He's saying he fears the worst for tomorrow. But I did obviously remind him that Brendan's never had a result. A win at Easter Road as well.
Touch wood right now. I'm touching wood. You touch wood.
Fingers crossed. Just like Livingston, we put that to the sword tomorrow. And if we turn up to any kind of levels, certainly Wednesday, but even to the levels that we played last week and that we've been playing away from home this year, then there should only be one winner. But I think Hibs at Easter Road are, they are a different animal to Hibs on the road at the moment, especially when
I like that
into town. But I just in terms of the kickoff, like you're saying, it's nothing short of a disgrace, mate. It really isn't, especially with the ticket gate. I know Hibs aren't perhaps quite as public about their reducing allocations and things to the extent that their pals across the city are, but Hibs played this card back when Brendan was manager. I think they were one of the first to do it. Halving our allocation behind the goals, and then literally there's a famous picture of that day. I think it was a 2-2 game where the half the stand is empty. There's not a soul in it. But it was all, they'd rather have a half empty stand than a stand full of Celtic supporters. I don't get it. You boys were talking about this last week, and I thought you were absolutely spot on, where in the sense of any, and we know the broadcasting deal is a sham, pittance compared to what other leagues pick up. But by the same point, the onus should be on that's their gift to bid whatever they want to show our TV rights. We've got to offer something that makes our league unique, give it a unique selling point. We obviously don't have the world-class players and the resources that the English Premier League does or other leagues. What I always felt was one of our unique selling points that, the Premier League now, of course, there is obviously there is still a hardcore element of fans at, your Uniteds and Liverpools and stuff, but generally, when you go down to these, I've been lucky enough to go down to a couple of matches down south, but it is very sanitised. it is very much pushed towards the, your favourite phrase, the touristy fan, the one that will, come over for the day and spend £100 in the club shop, and it's all about getting a picture taken and taking photographs of the opposition, taking corner kicks and all that kind of thing. That's very much more the culture down there now, Premier League wise anyway. Maybe not as you go further down the pyramid. Whereas up here, it's always, and especially Pittodrie, Tynecastle and Easter Road out with the big two. That was, they're the teams that you think at home have got more than a chance, and they're using that as an excuse to cut our allocation. I actually used to think us having a full stand helped kind of spur that on, because there's more kind of needle between the sets of supporters, which I think, in my opinion, helps for a better viewing spectacle, because we know that perhaps the quality of football isn't as high as it is in other leagues, but it was always something to watch, and it looked great, in terms of the passion and the just the kind of controlled aggression for the crowd as well. It was something unique, and especially obviously when the big two met, and you'd have it was an atmosphere unrivaled as far as I'm concerned. Whereas now, I don't understand it, mate, what the whole reasoning behind this is. And then to then do a double whammy with that, with Celtic supporters, to say, okay, we're reducing your allocation, so as few of you as possible will be in the ground. But then, and it's not like they didn't see this coming. The supercomputer, totally randomly made these fixtures back in the summer.
Oh yeah, 100%.
They seen that coming and thought, if anything, we could have, made our game Sunday at 12:30, so it's not coming into the blackout schedule, and being shown on Sky Sports. Rangers probably wouldn't have been against having another couple of hours rest and kicking off. We've seen that happen in the Europa League teams, kicking off later on a Sunday night, either Sunday at 3 o'clock or Sunday at 5 o'clock. There's definitely ways that could have been used. You're bang on, Jed. Motherwell Celtic, brilliant game a couple of weeks ago, but it was only available on pay-per-view and other avenues. And it's little wonder, I think, sometimes why I hate how negatively our game's viewed by ignoramuses, particularly down south. But then sometimes I take a look at it and think, well, if I wasn't emotionally engaged in this league, looking at it on the telly, it just Hearts Celtic meant, but one of the biggest firecracker games of the season. And Hibs as well, maybe a lesser venomous than Hearts Celtic. But last week it was on the telly. It looked very timid. Obviously, it was a one-way street on the park, but there was none of that traditional kind of to and fro between the supporters on the park as well. And I think it's negatively going to impact potential TV deals going forward.
Oh, 100%, mate. And you've took many different avenues tonight, and I absolutely love it, mate. I'm all there for it. And see, to be fair as well, if you're an owner of one of them clubs, you're thinking money. You're thinking more revenue coming into the team, and more money for transfers, and they cry poverty, but don't take, as you said, advantage of sporting occasions where they can make more money. But look, that's not our issue, is it, really, in that aspect of things? But what's your score and lineup prediction for the game tomorrow?
Well, I think there probably will maybe be a bit. Well, naturally, Hatate will be the forced change. Be interesting to see who he actually goes with. I think perhaps with the fact McGregor and O'Reilly are playing the way they are, he brought Iwata on as the first pick on Sunday, so perhaps he thinks he's maybe the best choice on a domestic front. So I think it will be the Iwata in the middle of the park for Hatate. Is there an option, maybe Yang but then again, Palma's playing so well now that it's hard to kind of credit dropping him. Perhaps with the fact that this is it's another one of those absolutely huge games, especially away from home. Perhaps they won't. I'm saying there's going to be changes. I'm going to totally change my mind on that, Stephen. I'll say one change from Wednesday night, and it'll be Iwata for Hatate, which is the forced change. But the back four for me, the now picks itself, and obviously Joe Hart, and that front three right now, Kyogo, Palma, and Hatate's coming up trumps for us. So I don't see he would change that for an away match against a team like Hibs.
Meira, you said a tap tater front three.
Did I say no there? Sorry. Meant to say Meira. Good job, Money, on the ball tonight, mate.
What's your score prediction?
I'll oh god, I think fingers crossed, touch wood, Brendan will exercise this last little unwanted piece of history he'll have, and he'll get a positive result at Easter Road. I'll go for a hassle-free 2-0.
Hassle-free, a Franny special, a hassle-free, comfortable 2-0. That's what he loves to pick. But look, as I said to everybody, there's one more TikTok I want to show you, and I do want to remind you, we're on that journey on TikTok. We've only started it. And again, it's just search up Endless Celts and hit that follow button, and we'll follow you back as well and create that community that we have on YouTube. And I want you to listen very carefully to this. Your ears have to be switched on. I mean, Anthony is right, to be fair, it's obvious, but have a laugh at this one.
Brilliant.
Savvy. Great. Which I think that this group of players and the players that we end up bringing in will be used to playing more than one, even two. I reckon there might be a time during certain games we change formation and systems and positions on the park 3-4 times. And
you just fought.
All of these guys are going to be very comfortable doing it. So
I agree. What are we gonna do?
Natural. You know what I'm like, Willie? I always why call a spade when you can call it a sharp implemented piece of gardening equipment.
I think the Champions League. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm. Wait.
I think will be a big player for us this season.
John, what do you think about the? Why do you think that? I know, listen, we hate to keep rolling, man.
Thoroughly prefer it. It's like Sky Sports News. This.
Oh my God! What a game, man. I think the lesson we have to learn. Poor Ross, man. He must have thought, nothing's going to pick that up. If you're looking for good sound quality, whatever microphone John brought that day, it clearly picks up everything. But honestly, it's when you grab Freddie's shoulder, man, try to hold it together.
It's one of the best laughs I've ever had. And Willie, fair play to Willie, just remaining focused on that. I was out of it.
Consummate professional.
I couldn't even speak. It was fantastic. But as I said, everybody watching along, hit that follow button on TikTok. There's going to be more videos. Willie's done a fantastic job of editing all our stuff and putting wee funny clips in that. It's just another journey that we're taking part in, Anthony. And this podcast is over. Have you enjoyed it?
Oh, absolutely brilliant, mate. As I say, obviously, I'm usually on a Monday night, but it was kind of nice sometimes just to hang it back. Work's over for the week, and it's a brilliant time. Obviously, talking about a brilliant performance on Wednesday night, and you're hoping for a win tomorrow. But as I say, I've created a TikTok just so I can tune into the channel, but I couldn't even tell the folk tuning in where to find it. But if he's wanting more of that, I know Willie's he's on the ball and he's going to try and do a wee bit of editing and stuff. So nick over to TikTok and follow us. I think it's just at Endless Celts or something, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
If you want to watch those horror shows again, but absolutely brilliant, man. And as I said, one of the other funny things I have to say about that, it's not even just it's your reaction, but it's John's reaction as well. Just as if he's like the gaffer, just raging it as well. Absolutely brilliant, man. But hey, that's the madness that happens when you're with us. This is not a polished production.
Oh, polished? Far from it. You can't polish a turd, mate. But I've been thoroughly enjoyed tonight.
Well, we've all sounded like we're trying to squeeze one out right enough.
But until Monday at half 8 on YouTube, after hopefully we get a good result, as you said, banishing the demons that Rodgers has faced at Easter Road, and hopefully we keep that gap at 7 points. It'd be fantastic. Until then, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.